TTM trades. Hey, welcome back. Look, I want to talk about take a spy in the VIX. Okay. Now, man, the spy is in this weird spot to where it's like consolidating and you really don't know if it wants to hit 400 before selling off and correcting or if it wants to correct right now. But I do know in my last post, I said SPY is going to go to 400. And just looking at SPY, okay, I wish I could pull up all three charts on here, but obviously through the Trading View program, I can't fully spread my screen out. I have a pretty wide, I think 38 by 40 screen, and I can only use half of it or the video starts pixelating. But anyway, so looking at SPY, man, I've been saying it's going to go to 400. This right here is the daily chart. 2 hour chart, right? Just looking intraday. Daily was pretty strong December, and you can start to see that this upward momentum is fading out. It fell below a short-term average here on the PMO, and it crossed back up, and it's trying to get back above the short-term average. But I think we're gonna get up to the short-term average as far as the PMO, get rejected, and then go downward. Okay, now this little bounce back up into that short-term momentum right there, as I'm pointing out, that could correlate with a bounce up to 395, 400. That's what I'm assuming. But when we dig in deeper, when I go to the 2 hour chart and the 30-minute chart, just looking at the SPY, right, this run that we have from the last pullback from 370 all the way up to 392, we got this run on, first we got the initial pullback. We got the signal on the 30-minute chart, right? Initial signal was here, 30-minute chart, PMO crossed over to show that the upward momentum to the upside has slowed down. Anytime that PMO crosses over, I know that we are either consolidating and or to take short positions, right? Puts. So we took puts on this. We took it back down to that 368, what happens to be the daily's chart, one standard deviation, which we talked about right here. And then immediately once I seen the RSI cross over, as you can see here, and then the PMO follow along with it, this is where we went long right around 375. And we've been riding this wave all the way to the upside. Remember, an uptrend is true as long as it stays above that top one standard. Above its middle Bollinger Band and that top one standard deviation. And it was holding pretty well. And just looking at pure price action alone, today we fell below that middle BB. And then we tried to rally back above that top one standard deviation Bollinger Band to get back in an uptrend, and then immediately got rejected. And now we're sitting here in between this 390.06 to 390.63 window. We're talking pennies here. All right, as far as a breakdown. Now, which way do I take this? Do I take this to the upside? I close out my long position. And right now, would I take this to the upside or the short side? Well, I'm probably going to take puts here back into another pullback for the simple fact that the RSI has broken out of this rhythm overall and has pulled back. It's got back above its short-term average, but it looks like it's going to pull down even further. One, we got rejected by that top one standard deviation Bollinger Band. Two, the PMO, as you can see here, if I slide over, has fully crossed over is short term and is long term average that I normally hold. So the momentum to the upside is done. Okay, for now on the 30-minute chart. Now, where does this leave us to pull back as far as price action? Now, anytime I break outside of the bands on a smaller time frame, I go to the higher time frame to look for areas of resistance, right? Because we're always trading within the bands depending on the time frame. So if we were to have a pullback, let me get rid of this line, which I think we will have here. If we break outside of this 1 and 2 standard deviation Bollinger Band on the 30-minute chart, then as far as this feeding into the 2 hour chart, we do have 386 sitting right here. And that 386 will correlate to some of these old tops sitting back right here. And then we do have 382, which will correlate to this area consolidation, resistance, support. And then we have 377, which we all know the 150 SMA on the 2 hour chart is the daily's chart, middle Bollinger Band, which is where we dipped last time. But the momentum to the upside is beginning to subside as of right now. And the 30-minute chart is kind of fading. So either going into the next couple of days, we will consolidate in this general price range, or we will get a sharp pullback to this 386 to 381 area before we start to move higher, give or take which direction we're going to go. Now, if I look at the VIX, if you look at the VIX is very telling also. And if you trade the SPY and SPY, then you should definitely monitor the VIX. But let's look at the VIX. Look at the 2-hour chart on the VIX and the 30-minute chart, right? Just looking at this, I'm gonna pull the SPY up, pull up a 30-minute chart here on the SPY. So just looking at this, when the VIX topped out right around January 29th, give or take. That's when the SPY bottomed out, and it's moving inverse of one another. If you don't know, what the VIX is, go read about it. I don't want to explain it right now. Okay, but you can see that the VIX is starting to flatten out and bottom, and you can see the PMO has crossed over both its short-term and long-term average, and it's coming out of bear territory. And now the PMO is now in bull territory. And it's not only in bull territory, but it's gotten above its 150 SMA, which is all very bullish signs above the 150 SMA and above its middle BB, with the PMO coming out of bear territory and coming back up into bull territory, right? And as the VIX is doing that, the S&P 500 is starting to fade out, okay, which shows that hedge funds are starting to possibly take puts to hedge their positions as far as the S&P 500 go. Now, if we look at the 2-hour chart on the SPY and the 2-hour chart on the VIX, if you see here when that VIX had that spike up and the SPY had that dip, went on this mean downtrend below his middle BB and that bottom one standard. But now look on the 2-hour chart, that momentum to the downside has subsided, holding above that bottom one standard, broke above his middle BB, pulled back to test it, and even closed above it. All right. And if you see, PMO is flattened out, still needs a little work, needs to get above that short-term average and that long-term average. And if you look at the RSI, which has been trending downwards to follow the momentum, soon we got in that 40 area, which I always keep marked off, where when we pull back into that 40 area, it's a very extreme area to pull back in. But as you see here on the VIX, as we got into that 40 area, momentum began to subside and start crossing back upwards to the upside. As you can see, the RSI is crossing back over its averages. So it looks like the VIX is picking up some speed here, and we might get another solid drop on the S&P 500 and or a pullback more or less. But the VIX is definitely reflecting a pullback here, and the S&P 500 is definitely reflecting a possible pullback here as the RSI pulled back to 40 on that dip down. Good area to lock in, and then the RSI had crossed back above both its averages on the S&P 500, but you can see it fell below its short-term average. Then it tried to rally in the day, and then it got rejected by a short-term average. So just some speculation right now. I do see us possibly pulling back here soon. I'm not yelling that the SPY is going to go into a downtrend and have a crazy correction. I just do see a temporary pullback to this possible 386 range to 382. And from there, we'll see what happens. But TTM trades, if you are long on the SPY, possible pullback here in the short term before we go to 400 or before we have a 10% correction. Either way, I'm locking in puts while the volatility is low before we get the breakout or breakdown. All right. TTM trades, I'm out.